What if I told you a season can smell like a mystery before the second quarter ends? You walk into a stadium expecting theater, and instead you get a slow, quiet unraveling. Not catastrophic, not dramatic, just the kind of night where one or two small things ripple until they become the story. That's what happened in Los Angeles. The Chargers walked away 25-10, and the Steelers left with something heavier than a loss. A question mark. The game started with a cruel little punctuation mark. Aaron Rodgers, who spent his career bending time and expectation, retreated into his own end zone under pressure, and the universe replied with a safety. Khalil Mack brought him down, and for a moment you could feel an old film strip flicker. The polished pocket, the veteran cool, the sudden human cost of being chased. It was only an early point swing, but it set the tone. The kind of tone where panic doesn't explode. It seeps. Look, Rodgers isn't a joke. He's a Hall of Famer who's reinvented himself more times than most teams change playbooks. But tonight, he looked like a man slightly out of rhythm with his tools. The numbers are ugly. 16 of 31, 161 yards, 2 picks, a passer rating that felt like a throwback to a night you forget. One bad read became another, and the pressure started doing its slow work. The charge isn't that he's been bad all season. The charge is that he's human. He's 42 in a league built for speed and snap decisions, and even the greats find their reflexes taxed when the hits keep coming. Those hits mattered. 6 sacks on the night. The Chargers didn't need to be spectacular. They needed to be consistent. Pressure breeds errors. Errors turned into a turnover and then a touchdown for Ladd McConkey just before halftime, and suddenly momentum is wearing a new uniform. The Steelers moved like they were trying to remember lines in a play they'd rehearsed only once. The offense had no reliable rhythm, no explosive plays, and the magic that usually finds a way felt absent. You could point to roster construction. The deadline came and went with the Steelers standing pat. No big acquisitions, no aggressive moves to bolster a suspect receiving core. It's the kind of quiet decision that doesn't headline today but echoes all season. When you don't add weapons, when you don't fortify the trenches, the pressure on your quarterback increases and the offense shrinks into safer, shorter throws. That's where the Steelers live now. A conservative offense that's easy to scheme against. And yet, this wasn't a total collapse. Jaylen Warren carved small, important gains. He gave them life on a few drives. Chris Boswell even managed a 59-yard field goal, a bright spot that briefly flipped the static into noise. But moments are expensive currency. They buy you seconds, not solutions. When those seconds don't stack into sustained drives, the scoreboard becomes a ledger of missed opportunities. The Chargers, meanwhile, were efficient. Justin Herbert didn't have to be a magician. He just had to be accurate and opportunistic. The big play that broke the game open, a 58-yard shot to McConkey, was textbook. Pressure, space, one throw that asked the defense a question it couldn't answer. And Kamani Vidal finishing with a score? That's the product of keeping drives alive, converting opportunities, and letting simple plays grow into the kind of advantage that proves unshakable. There's a psychological angle here that matters. Aaron Rodgers has always been a ledger with long, delicious annotations. You remember the comebacks, the late-game poetry. But legend doesn't suspend accountability. Fans are patient with history, then suddenly impatient with decline. The silence in Heinz Field after a game like this would feel different than the silence at SoFi because expectations are heavy in Pittsburgh. They see a team that's riding emotional capital from past seasons, not one building new currency. So what's the fix? There isn't an elegant one. You can shout for trades and shake a front office like a vending machine, hoping something falls out. You can demand that coaches draw up plays that look prettier on paper than they execute on grass, or you can accept the grind, get Warren closer to the line, build protection schemes that buy rods of time for Rodgers' reads, and play to your strengths. Tighter releases, quicker outs, more two-man routes that don't ask Rodgers to do acrobatics he's not confident in tonight. There's also the broader arc to consider. The Steelers still sit near the top of the AFC North, but not by much. The Ravens are breathing. Records are elastic through November. One loss in isolation is a blemish. A string of them becomes a pattern. Patterns are cages. Right now, Pittsburgh's got the beginning of an ugly motif. an offense that struggles to finish drives, a defense that holds but can't carry, and a leadership question about whether to double down on the past or build toward a different future. The visuals from tonight hang like a photo you can't quite crop right. Rodgers slipping into the end zone, a pass that was almost a miracle but instead became an interception in the red zone. A long third quarter where the offense pounded the clock but came away with nothing to show. Those images are small things that, when stacked, become the story. And that's the cruel anatomy of this league. The season is less about a single thunderbolt than it is about the slow accretion of tiny, decisive moments. Let's not be fatalistic. Football is a merciful sport in that it grants second chances with the regularity of a calendar. You get another practice, another opponent, another week to fix the leaks. Coaches will spend film rooms trying to trace causality, which play calls worked, which protections failed, which receivers didn't win separation. Players will get calls home, messages, and the quiet work of recentering ahead of the next whistle. That's the hope. It's also the necessary grind. For Rodgers himself, the path is complicated and honest. He can adjust. Quicker decisions, more reliance on his legs when lanes open, better pre-snap reads. He can also rely more on schematics that minimize high-risk windows. Or, and this is the hard truth, the team can accept that his twilight will be a mix of brilliance and fragility. Some nights will feel like vintage Rodgers, other nights will look like tonight. That's not a condemnation, it's an inevitability of time. And for the Steelers as a unit, the question is whether tonight's loss becomes an alarm or a lullaby. Do they scramble into panic mode trades and knee-jerk shifts, or do they grind out incremental fixes that 3 wins later feel like stability? Coaches prefer the latter. Fans often prefer the former. Both impulses are human. So where does this leave us? It leaves us staring at a scoreboard, sure, but more than that, it leaves us staring at a roster with choices to make. The AFC North doesn't pause while anyone decides. The Ravens will keep pressing. The Steelers have to decide if they'll answer with architecture, improving protection, adding threats, reshaping play calls, or with hope that the old magic simply reappears. One last image before the lights go out. Picture Aaron Rodgers walking off the field, helmet tucked under his arm, eyes not empty but thoughtful. Behind him, a season's worth of yards and echoes. Ahead of him, a few blank pages. The real question isn't whether he can still play. He can. It's whether this team can write a chapter that fits the kind of story they want to tell. Tonight, the pen slipped. But the season is long enough to pick it up again. In football, time doesn't pause for anyone, not legends, not franchises. Tonight, the scoreboard told the Steelers the truth. You can't rely on yesterday to win tomorrow. You could feel it the moment the Chargers' pass rush found a home. This wasn't going to be one of those sloppy, close games where a late play saves you. This was a night when the Los Angeles Chargers defense bullied the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, and the result was a 25-10 beatdown that leaves Pittsburgh's hold on the AFC North looking fragile. Start with the obvious. This was a brutal night for Aaron Rodgers. The veteran quarterback, soon to turn 42, looked like a man fighting the clock and the Chargers' rush at the same time. He finished with just 161 passing yards, 2 interceptions, and a 50.6 passer rating. By the fourth quarter, he'd been held to 96 yards before a garbage-time touchdown to Roman Wilson padded the box score. That's not the Aaron Rodgers who helped define elite quarterback play for decades. That's a man whose margin for error is tiny, and whose offense right now doesn't give him the margin he needs. It didn't start well. Rodgers retreated into his own end zone under pressure in the first half, and Khalil Mack tracked him down for a safety. That sequence wasn't just an ugly play, it was a tone setter. Rodgers was 7 of 14 for 64 yards at halftime and a passer rating in the low 30s. The Chargers didn't even need to be perfect. They just needed to keep the pressure alive and let Pittsburgh's instincts unravel. And that pressure did more than create negative plays. It turned routine moments into game-changing turnovers. Rodgers threw a pick that sparked a Chargers touchdown late in the first half and made the score 12-3 at halftime. By then, the narrative felt set: a stagnant Steelers offense, an opportunistic Chargers defense, and a game where Pittsburgh never found a rhythm. The Steelers' offensive shortcomings were visible in detail and on the ledger. They couldn't run with consistency. Jalen Warren had some bright flashes and helped engineer one meaningful drive, but the offense never sustained momentum. The line struggled with protection, which left Rodgers constantly working from a collapsing pocket. That kills timing. Routes break off early, rhythm dies, and even routine third downs become impossible. Watch the film and you see the little things that add up. On a key fourth down late, Rodgers threw to DK Metcalf in the end zone. The ball was underthrown and had no chance. Another pass rattled off Calvin Austin through his hands and into the waiting arms of Dante Jackson. Those plays look small in isolation, but they're the difference between a comeback and a washout. When your offensive line can't buy your quarterback 2 extra steps, you stop winning those thin margin plays. Credit the Chargers where it's due. Justin Herbert and his playmakers did what good teams do. They took advantage of small windows and turned them into momentum. Herbert hit Ladd McConkey on a 58-yard beauty on a tight window throw that changed the game's geometry. Kamani Vidal's touchdown run finished drives and kept Pittsburgh on its heels. Los Angeles attacked with speed, precision, and pressure up front. When the pocket collapsed,